Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to podcast number 4. This is for the Marion, a City with Pride podcast, and we're glad to be back with you today again. And right now, I would like to bring on our guest for today. He's a gentleman that has been here in town for some time and has a lot of responsibility of things going on by being the mayor and everybody. And so this is welcome Mike Powers, Mayor of Marion, Kansas.
Well, thank you, Gene.
Yeah. Hey, while we're here, and before we get into the business of why you're here, you're going to give an update on what the city of Marion's doing right now, and maybe we can take a trip down memory lane and talk about let's talk about the corner. You know, many years ago we did this same thing back when we had the TriCaster and we'd set it up and we could put ourselves in a looking studio, you know, that was great. Looked like we was downtown New York City. And give me some thoughts on that.
Well, as you know, Gene, we thought that it would be fun to see if we could put together a little. Really weren't thinking about a podcast or a vlog or anything like that. It was just maybe we could have our own little local news show. And certainly there was no staff. There was just you and me, so we weren't trying to go out and cover hard news or anything of that nature. But we focus on things that were going on in Marion. We had some interviews. Grant Tiroff, the longtime Marion high school football coach and teacher, was one of those, and had some fun with it. Showed an episode to a couple of club meetings that we attended, and so that was kind of the genesis, I guess, of your thought process here.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun doing that, and you know, this podcast today, you know, it's kind of like a mini news station. We're trying to get information and news out to the people around, and you know, we got like 1,000 followers on our cable channel, MCTV 20 Live, and you know, we do a lot of things like this for the school and so forth. We do the football games and basketball games and so forth and different things. And tell us a little bit about the group that's on that.
Well, you and I are, I think, the last still participating, not last surviving, but last participating members of. We started covering Marion High School sports, and it started with football in 1994. And we have continued to be a part of that since that time. And we went from having a VHS tape and a single camera stuck up in the stand somewhere with announcers holding microphones in their hand to actually have participated in, I think, 3 different renovations of the press box at Marion Stadium. And have gone to what we're doing is live streaming, so people are able to watch their kid or grandkid's game live, if it's an out-of-town game, let's say, or the weather's bad, or they're not able to get out of the house, whatever the case may be. We've had a lot of fun and a lot of luck with live streaming. People seem to like it, and we could do lots of things we couldn't do before. Nothing that's going to surprise anybody, but we're doing instant replays, and we've had a telestrator, and we just got to get Gene to remember to hook that telestrator up for us to mark on the screen. But we've done parades, and that was what shocked me. I always thought for years that people that are announcing parades are the most inane, saying the stupidest things. But you go and try to cover a couple of parades, and you realize that it's hard to cover a parade without sounding somewhat stupid. And it's like, well, there's a car decorated like a tree, or whatever the case may be. But those were incredibly popular. A lot of people viewed and liked watching the parades. And geez, Gene, I know you've on your own done everything from high school plays to grade school music performances at Christmas and so on. But we're still hanging in there. As a matter of fact, some of the other guys of the group that has come and gone, we call it MCTV, Marion County Television, but that I'm still very involved in football and not so much in basketball, but I'm going to help out and cover a game tonight. So yeah, we've been doing it a long time.
You know, that's one of the glitches that happens when you're doing this in a local studio done by people that don't understand it by hitting the wrong button there.
What wrong button did you hit?
Well, I hit a blank screen up on there just for a second.
Well, people probably appreciated that if it kept my image off. But anyway.
Yeah, and you know, all of this takes money to do, and we're really happy with our MCTV 20 Live. With the help that the local sponsors has given to us to be able to buy equipment, and each year we upgrade and we get something new just to make it better for them to watch and so forth. And gosh, I don't know, it's just been a ball.
This sounds almost like an obituary, Gene.
Yeah.
No, it has been a good time.
Yeah, it has been. So, okay, now that we've taken this little trip down memory lane, let's get into what you're here for and give us a rundown on what's happening in the city and where we're going in the future and what everything looks like. So here we go, Mike. It's all up to you.
It's all up to me. I gave this presentation to the local Kiwanis Club yesterday, as a matter of fact. And Gene asked if I'd be willing to kind of recreate it for this purpose, and I was happy to do so. I am the mayor of Marion. For those who may not know, my name's Mike Powers, and I've been the mayor now for, right about a year. January of 2024, we were first sworn in, and we're recording this in January 2025. I feel like there were some periods over the last year I felt an intense amount of frustration. Felt like we just weren't able, like anyone else, you start something new, you want to make changes, you want to improve this, improve that. But you have to start, I think, with an organization like a city, with the culture of the organization itself. There's been some work there's still work being done on changing the thought process, the culture of it, also identifying areas, specific projects, whether it's doing something in the community or just doing like clearing the roads of snow better than we've been doing, or whatever the case may be. I feel like we're starting to find some traction. We have a interim city administrator, Mark McInerney, longtime city manager of Emporia, much bigger city up the road, who has been with us for a year and as the interim and helping us out. And we are now in the process of actively searching for a full-time city administrator that we can hire that would devote all their time and energy to the city. So let me start with that. We have contacted the Kansas League of Municipalities, and they have a part of the services they offer. Now, these aren't all free, but there is cost involved. But we have retained them to work with us to recruit candidates to be our new city administrator. It's not as easy as just putting out an ad somewhere and saying, job opening, help wanted. Particularly in rural Kansas, and I would guess probably rural America, a lot of younger people just don't want to be in small towns. And we're looking for a young person, a professional person, who has a degree in public administration or something along that line, and who has familiarity with the city processes, grant writing, grant applications, just the things how to finance a city budget, all those sort of things. thought process is, when I say we, speaking of myself and the council, that our best bet would be to look for someone who's currently employed in city government, whether it's a city manager type government or city administrator type, Marion city administrator, so the administrator answers to the council a little bit more, and someone who's younger, doing a good job, but wants to grow in the profession, perhaps looking to make their resume better, that would be willing to come here. Now, obviously, it'd be great if we could get them to come here and they fall in love with the place and decide to stay here and have a family and kids and stay forever. But I think realistically, we're probably looking for someone who'd come here and give us, I don't know, 4 years, and do a great job for us, and then probably go look for, a job in a bigger city. My philosophy is that it's better to have someone really good for 2 or 3 years than mediocrity for 20, because we need someone good to help get things percolating here. So the search is on. As I said, we've hired the League of Municipalities. They are working right now on preparing some informational worksheets, or not worksheets, but pamphlets, that will be used in what we think is recruiting. We're going to have to recruit some good young people to come here, and that process is ongoing. Now, at the same time, we are looking to begin the process of finding a city economic development director, and that's the thing to keep in mind. This new council came in, there was no city administrator. The city clerk had been on the job, I think, less than a year. We didn't have a chief of police. We didn't have an economic development director. And we have been trying to piece this together. Has it gone slower than I hoped it would? Sure. Yeah, absolutely it has. But we're not going to just run out and make hires quickly just to put people in the positions. And so we need to get an economic development, city administrator, economic development director, chief of police. Once we get that done, then I think we will start to be able to really get going. One of the things I mentioned in the meeting yesterday at the Kiwanis Club was that there's no institutional memory within city government in Marion. You have one city council member who has served 3 years of a 4-year term, and he rolled over. We have one city council member who was serving out the last part of the first 2 years of a city council member's term. That member had died, passed away, and Kevin Burkholder came in, filled out the end of that, and then if he wanted to stay in the council, had to run for council again, either for a 4-year term or for the last 2 years of the term he was helping fill. He ran for 2 years, but he'd only been on the council for a matter of a handful of months. So you got one person who's been there for 3 years now, would have been there 2 years when we started, and then one member who'd been there for a few months, and then Amy Smith, Tim Boxa, and myself, all brand new. And we're learning as we go. And Mark McInerney, the interim city administrator, has been really helpful in that regard. But in any event, so we're going to get an administrator hired, either at the same time or shortly thereafter. We're going to get an economic development director hired, and then all the focus will be on the chief of police. And we are focused on that now, but it's third in our timeline. Now, with regard to the city itself and what's going on, working really hard, or putting a lot of focus, I should say, on establishment of a historic preservation district that would cover downtown Marion. It would go from 5th Street on the west end of the downtown district to Luda Creek on the east end. That's the current configuration. It goes a block or two off of Main to the north and south so that it covers the courthouse, the library, which of course is in the old historic railroad station, and then the city building on the north. I think we're going to try to expand the footprint of it to include the Central Park that's just across the creek, Luda Creek, to the east, because the museum is in the park, and so we'd like to include that. And there's a possibility, depending on, we're going to have to talk to the school about it, but if you just go up the hill a little further to the east, you've got the old Hill building. I think it's the oldest building that's still being used for schooling in the state of Kansas. Not exactly, not to say that we don't have new buildings, because as you know, Gene, we have a lot of new buildings and things are looking really well. But, excuse me, we also want to be able to give the school the benefits of the historic district. The historic district would allow those who own the buildings within it to apply for tax credit assistance if they want to do improvements to, maintenance of, repair on their buildings. So if you wanted to put a business in Main Street, Marion right now, there are empty buildings that we would all like to see filled. The problem is so many of them have bad roofs or other infrastructure issues, and the cost of repair is really high. Well, this program, if we can get approval for it, would allow a qualifying building to have within 40% or 60% of the repair costs covered by tax credits. So a $100,000 project could only be a $60,000 project out of your pocket, or conceivably even only a $40,000. So working really hard on that. A couple other things moving on that we want to work on, and I think this is true many places, but certainly true here, is we don't have enough housing. We have of all kinds. If you want to talk about really nice houses for people, we could use more. But particularly, and I keep referring to young people, because if all we want to be is a retirement community, that is a short-sighted way of looking at things. You need to have what I am. I'd say a gray hair, but yeah.
You got to have hair before you can say that.
Got to have hair before you're a gray hair. That is correct. Well, I could have hair if I chose to, Gene. It just wouldn't cover all my head. But we have to have young families, and if you're worried about what your taxes are, the best thing to do is be supportive of projects to bring people, housing, businesses into your community. Because as you get those things, you grow the tax base, so you're spreading the amount of taxes that we need out over other taxable entities, so that your taxes, your actual taxes, your mill levy, could and would go down if we can grow the tax base. So obviously we want young people, so we need housing for them. We have had some success on the south part of town. We've got a new project that's put in 4 duplexes, and I think is looking to hopefully do some more that are filling up real quickly. That does give us that if you hire a new teacher or a new, person coming into the community, it gives them a place to live, to rent, because many young people don't have the money to come in and buy a house. So the housing, in addition to the duplexes that I mentioned, we've got 4 new houses that have been built through some grant opportunities that the city made possible on Coble Street. That would complete a project that was started under the previous council. That was a really good thing for the city. I think there were 5 houses there. There's 4 now available on Coble Street that will offer some really decent housing for families that might want maybe upgrade. And that's what you look for, is you've got somebody in a house and maybe they've got 2 or 3 kids in the house, a little bit small for them. They can upgrade into these brand new houses, nicer houses. There are tax benefits for them that make it possible. And then their house becomes open for maybe as a starter house for another young family or an older person who wanted to go to something a little smaller. So we're really happy to see those coming along. We also are a little bit excited about the possibility of, particularly if we can get that historic preservation district established, of using, as at least some people have already done, the space above the buildings on Main Street, the storefronts, to create lofts. I talked with an individual in Emporia the other day who specializes in this sort of thing, who pointed out to me, and I hadn't thought about this, that if you can create living space above existing buildings like that, lofts on Main Street, it's the cheapest way for the city to provide living housing for new people. Because if we have a new housing development that goes in, you're going to have to get roads to that housing development. You're going to have to get electricity. You're going to have to get gas. You're going to have to get all of the services, sewer, all the services that there might be. If you can create good quality living spaces above existing buildings on Main, all of those utilities are already there. All of that infrastructure is already there. But yet you get the benefit of the increase in value of those buildings and the housing space for people. So that's something that I'm kind of excited about, and I'd like to see if we can get going. Going back to what I mentioned before, young families, we really need to market to everybody. And I don't think there's a problem with saying, yeah, we have a spot, and you would fit in well in Marion if you are 45 years old with 1 kid in college and a couple of kids still in the house. Or if you're 75 years old and you want a great place to retire near lakes, near hunting, near things to do with concerts and things of that nature that we have here. But you also, and I really want to push for young people, young families. We've got to work on child care in that regard, because if you've got a young family and you're working, you got to have some place for your children to go. We already have the new fiber optic cable going in all over town, so that so many young people are working from home at least part of the time, if not all the time. And to do that, you need top quality Wi-Fi, and we think we'll have that with fiber optic cable. You also need things that appeal to them and appeal to the young families. I am absolutely astounded at the use of the indoor pickleball courts that the school established in their new building. That place is busy all the time. There are pickleball leagues, there are pickleball tournaments, and so during the winter months, we got the pickleball covered. And frankly, if you're talking about winter months and things to do in Marion, with the indoor pool that the school has available and the indoor walking track that the school has available, there's plenty of things to keep young and old busy using school facilities. I think the city, and Roger Hannaford went to the city council meeting, city council, before the current group took over, so it's been well over a year ago, and proposed outdoor pickleball courts. And I think that council was interested in pursuing that, and the current council is interested in pursuing it, but it hadn't been done yet. We've talked about trying to do it ourselves using city staff to put them in. But I think at this point we're looking at some grant opportunities that might let us be able to do it a little more professionally, perhaps. And we're considering we have 2 full-size tennis courts available in town. that are not utilized very much. I would not want to take away the opportunity for tennis at all, but if we took one of those tennis courts, I think we could convert it into at least 2 and probably 3 pickleball courts, which would allow that pickleball enthusiasm to continue, and another great new opportunity for people to do things outdoors in the summer. I also, and I don't know if I really publicly said this, but I haven't hidden the fact that I really would like to see us put in a splash pad. Again, we have an indoor pool, and that's great, and it does a lot of good for us. And of course, it does have, when the big doors are opened, it has kind of an indoor-outdoor factor to it. And that, I say we, the school has it, but it's open to this community. But I would like to see us also have a splash pad that, of course, would be totally outdoors, that would again, it sends a signal that we are looking toward young families and young people, and it would give the ability for those young people to just take their little kids to the splash pad right here in Marion, not have to leave town to find that kind of activity, and it would just be a good thing for the community as a whole. I am going to end. I'm not going to go on forever, Gene. Sorry.
That's okay. This is why we do this, to get the information out. And I know the city's been trying to have transparency and let people see what's going on. And all the meetings of the city council is on YouTube, and it's also put on Channel 20, local channel for people to watch. And so you're really trying to get the word out.
Yes.
To them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't done it as much lately, but for quite a while there, I was starting every council meeting mentioning that. And of course, it's kind of a funny thing, because you're talking to, unless someone is watching online or on cable TV, they're never going to know what you're telling them, but relying on some word of mouth. So if someone says, well, what happened at the council meeting? Then maybe their neighbor said, well, you can watch it on Vive, Channel 20, right there in Marion, on is it Tuesday nights?
Tuesday nights.
Tuesday nights, yeah. Or you can go to MCTV 20 Live, and I joke that it looks like MCTV 2 Olive, but it's MCTV, the number 2 and the letter 2, number 2 and number 0, LIVE. And you can pull it up anytime you want to see it. And so I really do encourage people to check that out. And the good thing is, if you don't watch it live, you can, but if you don't, you can fast forward through the boring parts. And there are a lot of boring parts, and that's a good thing. It's not designed to be entertaining necessarily, but if you want to know what's going on in the city, we encourage you to go to MCTV 20 Live, or just go to the Marion City website, and there's a YouTube button. Click on it, and it will give you can go clear back, way back, city council meetings that have been recorded, and of course also get all the current ones. But one of the things that we are working on, I say we, the city, I haven't certainly turned a screw or lifted a hammer on it, but our water plant director, Jason Wheeler, and his crew have really been doing a great job of getting our water plant to where it should be. As I told the Kiwanis Club yesterday, I don't think they liked hearing this. You hear people talk about, well, we're just putting a Band-Aid on something. I think actually that's about all we can really do with the water plant. At some point in time, Marion's going to be faced with a choice as to whether we are going to build a new water plant or whether we will seek water from elsewhere, which would have to be Hillsborough. I really don't know of any other place that we would go to be able to purchase our city water. If we would ever get to that point, I'll say this now, and I'm pretty comfortable I can stick by it. It would be something that I would like to see put to a community vote. I think many people would say, well, you don't want to, be dependent on another city to provide your water, and can up the rates and this, that, and the other. And I certainly understand that, but it's a cost-benefit thing, and it's a matter to build a new water plant would be extremely expensive, and it would be a matter of whether the public wanted to pay that. There's discussion of trying to enter into some kind of a regional organization where Marion and maybe Hillsborough or other cities were all parts of it that would kind of jointly have the water delivery. But that's discussion. Well, that's not even discussion. That's just thought right now as to whether something like that would be possible. And to have that be possible, everybody involved would need to want to do it. And we don't know where that's going to go. But the good news is it's not a decision we need to worry about right now. I think the city's done a great job of getting the current water plant put up to where we've got some time to make some decisions. And if you want to call them Band-Aids that are being put on the current plant, they are very professionally applied Band-Aids that are going to buy us some time to check our options. Probably the last thing, and I'm not trying to cover everything that's going on in the city. I guess I'll touch on, I don't think I did this yesterday when I mentioned this. We had, of course, quite a winter storm a couple of weeks ago. And it was kind of like the perfect storm thing where it started with about, I don't know what, a half inch or so of ice, freezing rain and ice, and it was followed by, depending on who you talk to, anywhere from 8 to 12 inches of snow, and then was followed by a solid 2 weeks of sub-freezing temperatures. And it really taxed everybody. I know that on the Saturday that it was, or maybe it was Sunday, that was really coming down. I was on the phone with the county emergency preparedness director offering the use of the county or the city office building and the ballroom in there for, if you had stranded people or people that lost power and needed a place to go. And at that time, she was telling me that they had two Kansas Department of Transportation trucks stuck, and they were trying to get help to two separate vehicles that were north of town stuck along the road, and they were calling out the Lincolnville Fire Department to try to get the fire department fire vehicles out there to help these people. I mention all that only because it was that bad a storm, and the city crews were really put to the test in terms of snow removal. And I don't know that there's any time in any city, anywhere, that there's not an opportunity to gripe about whether the snow removal was done the best it could be done. But I think the city crew did all they could do. You have to keep in mind we have a limited number of machines that can remove snow and a limited number of staff to drive them. And you can't work them 24 hours a day for 7 days in a week. They tried to keep the major arteries open. They did make sure that the access to schools and particularly the hospital, that's kind of the first thing they do. Make sure you can get the ambulance to the hospital if needed, and they take care of all that. Then they started working on the side streets, and the goal, I think they achieved, was that every side street would get worked by a snow removal machine at least once. And obviously, if you've already cleaned your driveway and the grader comes by and pushes the snow off the road, it's going to cause a windrow across your drive. That's true in every city in the country and that has snow. And sorry about that, but it's the price of having your street cleaned, and you might just have to knock it down a little bit at the end of your driveway after they go by. But I think our crews did a pretty good job on that. And finally, we have put together a dangerous structures committee. The people on that committee will be our neighborhood services director, James. I just went blank on James Masters. The city administrator at this point, Mark McInerney, but when that changes, then that position will change. City council person Amy Smith, and city council person Kevin Burkholder, and then a layperson, Mark Hall. And Mark is a local person. Many people know him. His wife Susan's taught at the school for many years. I was impressed when I was running for mayor that Mark he was one that called me up, wanted to talk a little bit about his thoughts on, we need to keep the city clean and keep it looking good and make people take care of their houses and their yards. And for that reason, we asked him to be on the committee as well. And that committee will identify structures within the community that are potentially dangerous. And then once they've identified those, they will put a little bit more work into saying, okay, is this really dangerous? Because if it's not dangerous, not hurting anybody, then we're not going to mess with it. But if it's potentially dangerous, then the city will have to contact the property owner and deal with it. And that's something that is part of what we're going to try to do to clean the city up a little bit. That this is not where you have an overgrown yard. Now we're going to work on that too, but this is we're starting with what might be dangerous situations, and then we'll move to the other. So those are some of the things that are going on, and that's certainly I could talk for another couple hours, but I think I've probably gone long enough for now. That's just kind of the state of the way the things are right now, in my mind, of things that we're trying to work on in the city. And once we are able to get our full-time city administrator on board and give that man or woman an opportunity to get their feet underneath them, I've got pages of notes there that I've written of things we want to address. So, Gene, I hope I've... oh, wait, Gene, wake up.
Hey. Yesterday at the Qantas meeting, there was a question that come up, and I'd like to bring it back up to you and see what your thoughts are on it. You was talking about hiring a new administrator and a new police chief and everything, and last year, we had a lot of news. Marion was on the national news all over the country, and there's good news and there's bad news about your town and so forth. And the question was, do you think that this has any effect on the hiring of wages of the new persons that we're trying to get hired?
There's an old cliche that says there's no such thing as bad publicity as long as they spell your name right. And I think I would disagree with that. Obviously there was, Marion took a beating nationwide last year. I'm not going to get into much about that. It was certainly something that happened before I took office, and if I talk about it at some point, I will choose that time and place.
Okay.
But I will say this: you would be silly to think that with the hit that the city's reputation took, that it wouldn't make it harder to lure, that's the worst word I could use, to recruit people to the community, to fill roles that will be public roles, city administrator and police chief, probably more so than an economic development director. I think to do it, we are going to have to be at the, I would call it the upper end of the pay range for communities that like us. I mean, we look at other communities and have identified some that we think what are they paying for this? How are they doing that? It's always good to look at how the guy next door is doing something, or how much they're paying for it, and seeing whether you're being extravagant or whether you're at the low end of the scale. But I think we'll have to be, and we'll see. I mean, we're not going to jump out offering, way over the top. But we have given a range to the League of Municipalities on what we're offering for our job, and we will have to not only pay well, we'll have to, I think, offer some perks. And one of those perks is going back to what I talked about before, that we anticipate that the person we get could likely be relatively young in the profession, looking to grow and move up, that perhaps we could make it very clear that we work with them on continuing their schooling. If they have a a bachelor's, let's say, in public administration, and want to work on their master's, maybe we could accommodate them in some way, whether it's in time that we would allow to work on that or something of that nature. But yeah, we're going to have to make the positions very attractive. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that does. Yeah. Well, okay, we're going to wrap this up here in just a second. I just want to say that, if you enjoy these podcasts and would like to have Mike come back and talk to us on a quarterly basis or whatever, just give me a call or text to 620-382-7111. Or use my email, genewink@outlook.com. And so we want to thank you, Mike, for coming and doing this. And
now, you said you were giving me, was it $1,000 or $500 you were giving?
Well, we'll have to talk that over.